And I believe we are live for ZenJen Thrive Time with Harrison Meagher. Hello, Harrison.
Hello, my friend. Thank you for having me.
I am so happy to have you. You are in my neck of the woods over here in the New World. And you hail normally from right out in Sydney, Australia. Is that right?
It's close enough, that area, that side of Australia,
But you're in Tulum, Mexico right
yeah.
now.
Yeah, I just finished a beautiful healing experience with a group of loving souls with the intent of, actually, you can see it, branding the Cosmic Heart Tour right here. And yeah, we felt that both Ali and I, who hosted the retreat with me, we felt that this area of the world has a lot of magical history. So this is where we wanted to open and expand our hearts with a big group of people.
That's beautiful. And it sounds very collaborative, you and
Mm,
Allie, the work that you're doing
mm,
together, which is
mm,
inspiring for me and my work. I
mm,
love it when signature frequencies of human expression
mm.
merge together for that energetic exchange, and something new is birthed
Mm,
from that coming togetherness.
mm.
And then all of your beautiful clients, when they bring their beautiful soul signature frequencies into the mix,
Mm.
something truly magical happens in that moment, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I think it's a deeper realization that, well, a deeper remembering that we're not here alone. Not just we're not here alone, but creation is in the act of relating, right? Creation is in the act of meeting the oneness in someone else, right? And that can look different in many ways, whether it's formal coaching, whether it's mentoring, whether it's in a retreat, whether it's a book, whatever it is. But I think we have to allow ourselves to be seen and received by someone else so we can share more of ourselves with people that need it. Because
Hmm.
I know, and I know we're going to speak about all things ego here in a second, our ego likes to play interesting games of illusion. And if we're not checking ourselves individually, but specifically in what you're talking about with someone else, in the container of someone else, right? When I say container, it doesn't have to be a paid container, it could just be a friend or a family member. If we're not checking ourselves in those containers regularly, we stay in these illusions. We stay
Hmm.
in what I refer to as the unhealthy ego.
Yes, that's perfect. And please reiterate, like, because you, every time I speak with you, and I think that you have this same experience, there's just this, I mean, you can call it a cosmic download, so to
Mm,
speak, that it flows through. And the idea that comes through in the beginning of what you say, it shapeshifts, it morphs, it takes a new form by the end, and
mm.
I have a whole new download.
Yeah,
Is that, and you said something about the ability to receive.
yeah.
So take that a bit further for me, because
Mm,
that was drawing me into this
mm,
discussion about the ego
mm,
that I want to have today with you.
mhm. So, receivership, I would connect to your divine feminine in many ways, right? And for people that are watching, when I say divine feminine, I don't mean the physical female. I mean the yin to our yang that exists in each soul's cosmic heart, the heart of God that lives in each of us. Right? We have two sides of that cosmic heart. We have the yin, which is the feminine, the receiving, and we have the yang, which is the masculine, which is the giving, the doing, getting stuff done. And receivership is very heavily underestimated, and I would even say ignored in our culture at large because of many reasons. But the biggest, I would say, from my own experience, is it's perceived as not having value. It's
Hmm.
perceived as not being worthy. It's perceived as not getting stuff done. And in many ways, yes, the masculine is getting stuff done, but we equate doing only with value. And it is in receivership we're also getting value. It is in receivership we're also filling our cups back up. It's in receivership we're also connecting into our stillness, our silence, and our presence in many ways. So receivership acts as, I don't want to say an excuse, but acts as a context in which we can reframe how we see value in the divine feminine. Does that make sense?
It does. It resonates deeply for me right now. And I what I told you right before we came on was I have been tapping into my own divine feminine in a very intentional way, and it is what the way I perceive this divine masculine and divine feminine, these energies that are present within us all, is the divine masculine is kind of this external outward force, and the divine feminine is this internal receiving force. And when manifesting any vision or any goal or any kind of like what our purpose is here while we are here, both energies are very relevant and very necessary in order to bring something new to life, to birth into existence a vision, purpose, a goal, anything at all. And if we become too immersed in one or the other, that imbalance causes some disarray and some tapping back into the other side to achieve that balance.
Yeah. I'll add something to this, though, that I think most of us overlook is, yes, it's pivotal to the creation process that you're talking about. But it's also pivotal to, because again, this is another misconception we have, that we think that creation is only in the doing, and only in, even in what you were just saying, right? You were saying, I need to get all the ingredients and then I'm going to make something happen, right? Yes, that's one way of doing it. But we can also create by attracting. Right? This is the other side of the coin that we haven't acknowledged fully as a culture, that we can also create by just being magnetizing and bringing the things into our world. And the underline here is that magnetizing frequency, I would call it, often comes when you are in balance between the masculine and the feminine. Because what does that look like? When you are, because there's another symptom of our society. We think that the norm is in the red of either, right? Either the norm is I'm in the burnout of too much of the pushing, or the norm is I'm in, and this is infrequent, but it exists, I'm in the norm of I'm not doing enough. I'm not getting stuff done. I'm just lazy and doing nothing. And those are the two polarities, but we forget that there is a middle ground. And the middle ground is that balance that you're talking about, the balance between inspired masculine action and creating enough time for the intuitive receivership of the feminine download. And when we walk that line, we're magnetizing. We attract in. We attract in the relationship that we want. We attract in the business opportunities we're looking to create. We attract in the resources needed to create the thing we're looking to create.
I love the attraction ingredient that you've sprinkled in to this little sequence. This is fascinating for me because what happens, or what I can speak to, is my own experience. And my experience on my own journey of awakening, a sudden awakening that was unexpected about 8 years ago, I became very much immersed in this divine feminine expression of receiving so much and just absorbing and having this, I mean, at times it was turmoil and at times it was inspiration, but it was all broiling within this vessel that I had discovered within myself. And then something like there was a rub, there was a friction, like there is so much happening inside of me on the internal realm that it felt very imbalanced, that I
Mm.
needed this divine
Yeah.
masculine expression to bring it into the world.
Mm.
And then the flip
The
side of
opposite.
that, I guess the pendulum
Yeah.
swings the other way, right? I became very much involved in my work in the virtual space, supporting spirit led leaders and practitioners like yourself in all of the ways in which I became a Jill of all trades.
Mm.
And what happened then was I lost touch with that
Mm.
divine feminine vessel that led me to this exploration in the first
Mm.
place. Is this something you encounter with your clients often, or?
you you read my heart. So I was just about to say, this is where we bring in our devotional acts, right? Because what you're speaking about is the human being remembering that they're an internal spiritual being, right? That has these two polarities. But again, just like I was speaking about earlier, we live in a culture that has conditioned us to think that we have to be in the reds, as you beautifully just highlighted, right? One of those red zones. And that's the normal. But in reality, and you've read my book, I talk about this a lot in my book, your baseline state is one of balance. Your baseline state is one of homeostasis. Your
Mm,
baseline, your your baseline state of bliss is one of harmony, right? And harmony is between those two states, between the yin and the yang. It's walking that line.
mm,
That's our baseline. So when we're in the reds on either polarity, as you described, that is our indicator that we need to implement some practices. We need to bring devotion back into our lives, not devotion to an external element, not
mm,
devotion to an external person, place, or thing like we can all fall into the illusion of, but devotion to self, right? And this can look like many different things. This is why my journey has taken a sort of holistic path, right? Where I've learned the physical practices, but those physical practices aren't enough. We need to have the mental, the emotional, and the deep spiritual practices so that that harmony can be our baseline again.
mm. You read my heart just now. That's incredible because I was going to mention, I mean, in all of the creators that I collaborate with and co create with and have an energetic exchange with, I look at all of their things and I pulled up your website and I was like, Harrison has kind of a fitness flair to
Mm,
this experience, this entire journey. And I was really intrigued by this because when I was moving out of this, I mean, when my pendulum was swinging to the other red zone, as you call it, and I was moving more in tune with a divine masculine expression,
mm,
I was coming out of a deep depression where I wasn't moving my body. I
mm,
was sleeping a
mm,
lot. I was it was a dark time for me. And I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world because it led me to exactly where I'm meant to be right now. But I was envisioning myself as a stone growing moss
mm,
because of my lack of movement. And something ignited in me, and I joined a cross training gym having no background in
mm,
fitness. My husband went along with me reluctantly. We were kind of couch potatoes through our 20s. But all of a sudden, we went through this transformational shift of epic proportion in like the 3D world of interaction with other humans, where we lost 70 pounds. We started eating a plant based diet,
mm,
and everything shifted so drastically, and it was so incredible. It was like it was like I felt like this divine communion all of a
Mm,
sudden had just awakened me to something new. And this was after a spiritual awakening. This was into the external world where I was moving into. But at some point in time, this fitness practice, it became it became so it became a chore, and it became this thing that was like degrading my body,
mm,
and it was becoming, it wasn't what it was in the beginning stage.
mm,
And I was looking at your website and your practice of moving your body and, igniting your physical form here in the
mm.
3D. And I was like, I want to talk with Harrison about this experience that I had.
Well, I have many thoughts on what you just said, but I'll try and keep it condensed because as I've gone deeper into the spiritual culture, one of the biggest illusions that has raised its head is that we must transcend this physical 3D form if we are to become enlightened or we are to reach our spiritual pinnacle.
Hmm.
And even if you look at a lot of religious teachings, Buddhist teachings, Vedic teachings, I'm generalizing, but there are a lot of spiritual doctrines that put the body secondary. And I just cannot underline how incorrect this is
Hmm.
because it is the body that expresses the spirit. It is the body, it is the reason we are here right now having this conversation. My soul, your soul, didn't just come into this incarnation here on earth in this human form for no reason. There's no there's no coincidences in the divine plan that we are all a part of and unfolding through. So just that understanding alone can help you see the importance of everything that you are. Not just the physical, but everything. But let's keep it specific to the physical. So just I want to plant that seed for people watching. If you're in this illusion of being spiritual means not being physical. No, no, physical is included. I want to go back to the point that you said, though, around your specific experience of it changed and you lost the passion. And I would actually correct you and say it's not the physical movement that you lost passion around,
Hmm.
it was the box that you were placing the movement in, right?
Hmm.
Like any other part of our being, there is always intuitive guidance that is directing what we should or shouldn't be doing. Yet most of us are not listening to that guidance and placing ourselves in masks and boxes and things we think we should or shouldn't be doing, and then we blame ourselves and think that we're wrong. But in
Hmm.
reality, we just got lost in another illusion and we just need to change the box. We need to tune back in. So let's keep it specific to the physical movement. We need to tune back in and get honest with ourselves. Is my movement right now CrossFit? Or is my movement right now going outside for a walk in nature? Is my movement right now dropping into a yin yoga pose for 3 minutes? Is my movement right now getting outside and just doing some tai chi for 10 to 15 minutes?
Or
It's
having a
all,
dance party with my kids
yeah,
in the living room.
exactly, exactly. So it's the movement will always be needed, but the box that it's in will shift. But it's up to you to listen to that. If you don't listen to it, then of course you'll get to the point where you'll lose the passion because you're not listening to what the passion is directing you to do.
Hmm. Yeah, it was never the CrossFit. I I was mistaken in thinking
Yeah,
that was my portal.
yeah.
Kind of like these teachings that you're referencing, the Vedic teachings, the Buddhist teachings, where it's almost like they're asking you, or I think that their teachings are being misinterpreted by us humans, in that we think that they're asking us to renounce the body.
Mm,
No, it's not the body that is the point, but it is our portal to tapping into the thing that is the point.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll throw in another piece here, right? I'll throw in the emotional and mental connection to this spiritual, physical conversation we're already having. Where does trauma hold itself? Where does a mental story, such as I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or a traumatic experience, such as from inner child, where I was abandoned and rejected and held onto a lot of guilt and shame and grief and pain, where does that hold itself? Does it hold itself in some etheric space outside of me? Or does it
Mm,
hold itself in the body, in the now, waiting to be looked at, waiting to bring awareness and love to be released from? So
mm,
your portal analogy is very powerful because that portal is closed for most of us. And
yes.
one of the reasons it's closed is because we're holding onto a lot of, I would call them soul fragments. I would call them layers of illusion. I would call them pain points that can be accessed through the body.
Mm. It's not just a portal. It's not just a processing. It's a processing system.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
just a portal. It's not just a.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say, it's not just a portal and processing system. It's also a hard drive
Yeah.
that
It's a good
holds that
good image.
information. And what I believe you're saying is the information that we are holding from our previous experiences of pain
Mm.
and trauma, and we don't know we're holding on to it,
Yeah.
kind of like we don't even remember what we've saved on
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
computer. It's all sitting there though, and it's all kind of clogging up the works
Yeah.
in our processing system.
Well, and
Yeah.
not just so I love this train of conversation here. There's so many ways that we can take this, but it's not just clogging up our works, right? So
Hmm.
you said something very powerful. It's unconscious. However, all of these pains, all of these these stored data points, they don't want to be stored, right?
Yes.
Let's just use the example of emotion. Let's say a blocked. Let's say we have a stored emotion of anger, which most of us do. Emotion innately is energy in motion. It wants to move. So when we are innately storing it, it's against its nature. So what that means is it wants to get our attention. But if
Mm,
we are not bringing conscious awareness to it internally, then what other option does it have to do?
right.
What's the backup plan to that? It projects into the outside world. So I think it's Freud or Jung. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will project into our outside world and we will call it fate,
Mm,
right? So
mm,
what that means is it will show up in our relationships. It will show up as triggers and wounds and points of tension that we will think is their problem. That we will think it's that lover, that friend, that family member, they're making me feel this way. But in reality, what they're doing is they're triggering these unconscious data points that deserve to be seen, loved, and released.
mm. We're leading beautifully into the discussion of ego, are
Mm,
we not?
mm, mm,
It's like we're paving the way there with
mm.
this. And I
Well,
want to quote your book
yeah,
for
please.
a moment, if I may, because this has been a profound revelation for me lately. In whenever I joined this CrossFit gym that we were talking about, and whenever I emerged into the virtual landscape of spiritual work, there's this concept of ego that's very prevalent. It's very uh like it affects
Evil.
everything and everyone
Yeah,
all simultaneously, like,
yeah.
and you can see it, you can perceive it. And I am
Mm,
very empathic and intuitive to that, but until recently I didn't really know what I was looking at.
yeah.
And it was this epiphany while reading your book. And also, I'll cite the work of Matt Kahn. I'm not sure if you've encountered Matt Kahn, but I'll leave it in the comments. Just this chat, this revelation that I had. And I'm going to quote your book from Cosmic Love Antenna just for a moment here. Something that's very important to understand with your healthy ego is that the ego in itself is not innately good or bad. It is a lens of expression. I kind of jumped past a few other points just to make that
No,
point,
it's good.
but it is in bringing it with my revelation of what ego actually is.
Mm.
And this is directly from Matt Kahn and his talk, that the ego is nothing more than an inflamed personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it's actually a beautiful soul signature expression
Yes.
that exists innately inside of you. And I
Yes.
know this from my work in connecting with my brother, who
Mm.
he took his own life in 2015, and I connect with him very regularly from beyond
Mm.
the veil. And we think that once our finite body dies and we move on and transition, we think that, oh, well, then the ego falls away. Those are just human qualities, but his personality comes through all the time.
Mm.
I see, I feel, I experience it when he as if he were in the room with me.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
So that can't be the case, that it
Mm.
all falls away. It's actually the fact that it's always there. It's something innately there within you that you are meant to tap into. But whenever
Mm.
it comes through as a lens expression, like a filter of the
Yeah.
ego, of that trauma and that pain,
Yeah.
this is what shines through to the outside world. And so,
Yes.
for example, someone who is embodying like this self-righteous,
Yeah.
unhealthy ego,
Yeah.
what that is actually an imbalanced expression of
Yeah.
is, I have something worthy to share with this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are doing their best to convince themselves of that as well as you,
Mm.
because at some point along the way, it was communicated to them that they didn't have anything
Mm.
worthy to share with this world.
Mm.
And it's that expression of unhealthy ego that filters through, it's a beautiful personality trait, and we all have our own soul signature frequency of all of the different kinds of unhealthy ego.
Well said. I can tell you've been reading my book. I mean, I could say I couldn't say it better than myself, but I did say it myself. So
You did.
I'm just thinking what I can add to this. Another word that kept coming up as you were expressing the lens and the personality of the ego is individuality, right?
Yes.
It's let's take it all the way out. Let's zoom it all the way out. We are all individual expressions of the one source, whether
Mm,
you want to call it God, love, the quantum field, the unified field, the one mind, Allah, whatever your name is for that one source. We are all unique expressions of it. And the ego is the mechanism in which that unique expression is expressed. So the reason this is important, because again, this is another fallacy within the spiritual community, that we must kill, we must destroy, we must push away the ego.
mm,
And if you just take my definition, what I just said, and connect it to that, if we kill, destroy, and push away the ego, we're also in that moment pushing away our individuality. So
exactly.
it's when we're doing work with our ego, we're not breaking down the mechanism. We're looking at, with loving awareness, what we are expressing through it at any given moment. Am I expressing through my ego lens some shadows, some pain, some limiting beliefs, some wounds?
Mm,
Or and I talk about this in my book as well, am I expressing my unique frequency of presence? Right? Because we have a choice. We have a choice in any moment to express our unhealed wounds, our imbalanced karma, or express our unique presence frequency of love.
Hmm. Another quote from Cosmic Love Antenna. So now we work with our ego rather than against it.
That's it.
It's all of those files. I call them corrupted files. Like there's nothing like wrong with the experience that you had, and it's not something that you need to run from.
No.
But there is a corruption of perception and expression.
Yeah.
And as I love the how often you reference Carl Jung in this book, and that his work has really revolutionized not only my own life, but really all of the interconnected collective in how we view our experience here on Earth. But it's profound whenever we extend that metaphor of the hard drive and all it's holding, and we're not conscious of all it's holding, but how much it is coloring
Yeah.
our
Our
everyday
reality.
experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would go further. I would say it's not just coloring, it's creating.
Mm.
It's making our experience. Like, because this is where we can actually bring in the really beautiful Vedic teachings, right? The Vedic teachings express that on top of this Jung lens, right? The Vedic teachings express that there is no objective outside world. There is just the world that we create through the projection of our current state of consciousness. And what that means is our current state of consciousness is built up of all these different aspects of self. The aspects of self that are unhealed, as we've already been talking about, or the aspects that we've brought back into our heart space and back into oneness, right? Which I'll add to what you said about those corrupted elements. Corrupted works with this analogy, but we need to be mindful that whether it's corrupted elements, shadow elements, pain elements, Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, right? All the shadow, all the same name for the same phenomena of pieces of us that are in separation, fear, and pain. We must see them, right? I talk about this in my book, as children that need love.
Yes.
Right? We don't want to see them as this, like the ego, right? This is the macro is the micro. Like the ego, we don't want to see it as something that's bad, that needs to be punished, that needs to be ignored. We need to love them like children, because that, and I'll add one more little perspective here. In the shamanistic worldview, these are called soul fragments, another name for this. And what a soul fragment is, it's a piece of our oneness that has detached, but it's not fully detached, right? It's still connected, and that's what's causing the triggers.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring those pieces, those painful elements, that pain body, that wounded aspect back into our wholeness, we don't shun it, we don't judge it, we don't blame it, we don't shame it. We let it know that it's loved unconditionally and that it's time to come home.
And these are those fragments within ourselves.
Yes.
I think it can also be extended to whenever we encounter someone else's unhealthy egoic expression, and we can, like you said, love them like they are a 5-year-old child in pain.
Yeah.
We can see where this is coming from, and it's not something that we need to shun away and ooh, get away from me with your ego.
Yeah.
It's actually an opportunity.
I'll add a piece here that's really exciting to talk about because it's I
I
don't
know
see
you only
anyone.
have about 5 more
Yeah,
minutes.
I
I'm
know, but
loving
I
this.
want to keep going because this is important. This is exciting because I don't see many people talking about this within the online space. You just made the example of seeing it in an external person and loving that their shadow. And I want people to understand that in that moment of you loving their piece of their shadow, it's also you doing self-healing work.
Mm.
And I'm going to explain this with a common example that we all experience on the internet, on social media. When we post something and then a comment comes in that's trolling us, that says something, judgmental, angry, you know what the trolling comments are like. And in that moment, most of us only do two options. We meet their shadow with shadow,
Mm-hmm.
or we ignore it. Right? I think
Mm-hmm.
those are the most two common situations that people fall into. But there's a third option that I would encourage everyone to tune into. It's to love that person in their shadow. Because what are you doing in that moment? That person isn't just on your video for no reason. They were pulled to your content. They were
Right.
pulled in their trigger, right? They were pulled by something that you said that's triggering them to react and project onto you. So what that means is, for you as the content creator or the person that's receiving the negativity, there's also something for you in their negativity. Their anger that they're projecting probably also exists inside of you, because that's why they're there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So to summarize this, when you love on that comment, when you say to that person, and I do it in many different ways, but you just say, I love you, I appreciate you for being here, you're worthy, you're divine, whatever it is, you're not just supporting them eventually by planting a seed. You're also loving the aspect of you that was triggered by their comment in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your love is a boomerang, right? It boomerangs to them, but then comes back to your heart with that same aspect.
It's perfect. And I'll extend one more metaphor here. It just confirms that even though we are living in this illusory simulation of separateness,
Mm.
that just as you said, they were attracted
Mm.
to your platform,
Mm.
like by way of energetics and what it
Yeah.
is you are sharing. It pulled them in like a force field.
Mhm.
And if you share shadow with shadow, that's speaking to something within you
Yeah.
that needs to be looked at
Yeah.
closely.
Yeah.
But I think that is the issue with remaining authentic. It's in thinking that we don't want this trauma to be a part of us anymore.
Yeah.
We don't want that to be
Mm.
something of our signature that we're sharing with this world. We want to renounce that and get it away from us.
Mm.
And that pushing away, it really is like renouncing your birthright, because as soon as you bring it back into the fold
Yeah.
in the way that we're talking about, you'll experience, you'll feel it. That speaking about this trauma authentically is
Mhm.
no longer something that's painful.
No.
It's actually liberating.
Yeah. A nice little bow there. I love it.
Yeah, it's like the reflection of the mountain in the pool of water.
Yeah.
They are one and the same. One is an expression of the other, one is a reflection of the other, and that is what we are here to do for each other.
Yep. Beautiful. I love it, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. You are always welcome. You give me soul tingles every time, Harrison. And have
Well,
a you
I was just
when are
going to
you
say,
headed back to Sydney, Australia?
we'll see.
You might just
uh,
have an extended stay.
yeah, that's one way of saying it. That's where my heart is at the moment. But I would say latest probably end of May at this point. So we'll see
Amazing.
how we go. Thank you for your love today.
Check out your cosmic love antenna. It will change your entire perspective on your spirit-led journey. Thank you so much for joining us for Thrive Time Live here in the Interconnected Collective, Harrison. It is always a pleasure.
My pleasure, my friend. Sending love.
Take care. Received and resent.